Hey, Scooby! Scooby Doo, looking for you. Scooby Doo, where are you? All the stars are here, waiting for you. Couldn't have a show without you. Scooby Doo, Scooby Doo.
Hello, Scooby Doo fans! Welcome to my Season 2 Episode 8 review of the new Scooby Doo movies. Well, here we are, guys, the last episode review of the new Scooby Doo movies as a whole, and the last episode review of Season 2 of the new Scooby Doo movies. It took about a little bit over a year, but we finally made it to the conclusion of the new Scooby Doo movies, and I'm so excited to finish it off. Obviously, before we continue, I do obviously have one more thing to mention, is that this is Nicole Jaffe's last episode voicing Velma. Now, this is not her final performance as Velma in the Scooby-Doo franchise as a whole. She does have 2 more movies that she does in the future that she'll come back and voice Velma as. But TV show-wise, in the TV space, this is the last time we will see Nicole Jaffe voice Velma in the TV series format. As to why Nicole Jaffe left, she basically retired from acting after this episode aired in 1973, and became like a talent agent for other actors. So she pretty much quit acting and just decided to pursue another career, which was, being an agent, a talent agent, for other actors. So it's a shame that we won't see Nicole Jaffe again until we get to the movies. Legend of the Vampire and Monster in Mexico, where she will come back as Velma. But it's a shame that she won't be back in the TV space anymore. But I will talk about the next Velma in line, Pat Stevens, when we get to the next episode review of, Scooby Doo, which is the first episode review of the Scooby Doo show. But yeah, essentially, this is the last episode for Nicole Jaffe as Velma in the TV space of Scooby Doo. So it'll be interesting to see how she fares in her last appearance, TV show wise, but we'll see. Anyways, last time I continued my playthrough of Scooby Doo 900 Frights with the release of part 13 of my Let's Play. I hope you guys enjoyed that. There was a little bit of some glitches here and there, but I'm sure you guys are used to that by now. I have that sometimes when I'm recording. I do my best to try to, fix those, but, sometimes it doesn't always work out, so it is what it is. But yes, of course, today I'll be covering Season 2, Episode 8 of the new Scooby Doo movies, titled The Haunted Carnival, which was released on October 27th, 1973. The short synopsis of the episode is, when no one shows up at his carnival, Dick Van Dyke enlists the help of the kids to track down the ghost that is scaring away his customers. So today's guest star and the final guest star of the new Scooby Doo movies is, of course, Dick Van Dyke. Who is Dick Van Dyke? Well, he's an old school actor that has done a lot of things in his career. Most famously, you guys probably should know him from Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins is, of course, a Disney classic. So any Disney fans out there, which is a lot of people, should know who Dick Van Dyke is. He's also had plenty of sitcoms, revolved around him, have his name in the title. And he was in 2 Night of the Museum movies more recently. So I feel like if you're definitely old school, you should know who Dick Van Dyke is. He's had plenty of, media in the past that he was most famous for. But even if you're my age or younger or a little bit older, you probably should at least be somewhat familiar with Dick Van Dyke, as, it's Mary Poppins, the classic, Disney film. I'm sure there's not many people who have not seen that, but I'm sure maybe a couple of you have also seen the Night in the Museum movies. So, I mean, you guys should, and I've heard, and, you probably have heard Dick Van Dyke's name, thrown around a couple times, since he had tons of sitcoms back in the day that had his name plastered all on it, has his name plastered on show, sitcoms with his name plastered on it. But yeah, just in case if you guys aren't familiar with who Dick Van Dyke is, here's just a quick rundown of who he is. So Dick Van Dyke is an American actor, entertainer, and comedian. He was born on December 13th, 1925 in West Plains, Missouri. He began his acting career in 1955, where he was the host of the morning show on CBS until, from 1955 up until 1956. Now, when it comes to television, his other memorable roles in TV include an episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, where he plays Thomas Craig. Then, of course, he had the Dick Van Dyke Show, his own show, from 1961 to 1966, where he played Rob Petrie. He had 2 television specials. One was called Dick Van Dyke and the Other Woman, and the other one was called Dick Van Dyke Meets Bill Cosby. Both of those specials he played himself. Then there was the new Dick Van Dyke Show from 1971 to 1974, where he played Dick Preston. There was Van Dyke and Company, where he played himself. There was the Carol Burnett Show, where he played a cast member on the show. The TV special Donald Duck's 50th Birthday, where he plays himself as well as the host. The Van Dyke Show, where he played Dick Burgess. The Golden Girls, where he plays Ken. Jake and the Fat Man, Diagnosis of Murder, and The House on Sycamore Street, where he played Dr. Mark Sloan. A Twist of the Knife and Diagnosis Murder, where he once again played Dr. Mark Sloan. Sabrina the Teenage Witch, where he plays Duke. A Town Without Pity and Without Warning, where he once again plays Dr. Mark Sloan. The TV special, The Dick Van Dyke Show Revisited, where he once again plays Rob Petrie. The television films Murder 101, Murder 101 If Wishes Were Horses, Murder 101 College Can Be Murder, and Murder 101 The Locked Room Mystery, where he plays Dr. Jonathan Maxwell. The television film Fun with Dick and Jerry Van Dyke, where he plays himself. Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, where he voices Captain Goofbeard. The Masked Singer, where he plays the gnome as well as himself. The Simpsons, where he voices himself as well as Karaticus Potts. And Dick Van Dyke, 98 Years of Magic, where he plays himself. Now, when it comes to films, his most memorable roles in films include Bye Bye Birdie, where he plays Albert F. Peterson. Mary Poppins, where he plays Bert as well as Mr. Dawes Sr., Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, where he plays Karaticus Potts. The Comic, where he plays Billy Bright. Dick Tracy, where he plays District Attorney John Fletcher. Walt, the man behind the myth, where he is the narrator of the documentary. Batman New Times, where he voices Commissioner Gordon. Curious George, where he voices Mr. Bloomsbury. Night at the Museum, where he plays Cecil J. Fredericks. Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tombs, where he once again plays Cecil J. Fredericks. And Mary Poppins Returns, where he plays Mr. Dawes Jr. in a cameo. Amazingly, Dick Van Dyke is actually still alive today at 98 years old. It's actually really incredible. Honestly, before I did this review, I didn't even know if Dick Van Dyke was still alive. I actually didn't think he was. So I was actually quite pleasantly surprised to learn that he is actually still alive at 98 years old. Which means that I was wrong when I said Cher and Sandy Duncan are the only 2 living guest stars in the new Scooby Doo movies. Because now we can add a third man, which is Dick Van Dyke. So not only is Dick Van Dyke one of 3 guest stars of the new Scooby Doo movies to still be alive today, but he's the last remaining male guest star of the new Scooby Doo movies to be alive today. Which is incredible that he's still alive at 98 years old, and I'm honestly happy for him. And it makes you wonder, why didn't they bring him back for Scooby-Doo and Guess Who? If he was still alive today, why not have him come back? You brought Cher back, you brought Sandy Duncan back for Guess Who. Why not bring back Dick Van Dyke? I don't get it. I have no idea why they didn't bring him back. I maybe because he, since he's getting up there in age, maybe they didn't think he could voice in the booth. But I don't know. Like, give him a shot. He may be old, but maybe he could pull it off. Besides, I don't give a shit how old he sounds. I would just love to hear him again and just see him in a new episode with the Scooby Gang. So I personally think that it's a missed opportunity, and guess who? That they didn't bring him back. But yeah, he's still alive and kicking today at 98 years old, and good for him. That's incredible. He's 2 years away from 100 years old. That's quite amazing. So at the time of this episode, Dick Van Dyke was, of course, doing his sitcom, The New Dick Van Dyke Show, from 1971 to 1974, where he played Dick Preston. That's what he was mainly doing during that time frame outside of the new Scooby Doo movies. So as per usual, I'll be watching Season 2, Episode 8 of the new Scooby Doo movies on the new Scooby Doo movies, the Almost Complete Collection. This Almost Complete Collection has every episode of the new Scooby Doo movies, minus the Addams Family episode. However, you can go view that on HBO Max right now. And I'll be talking about the special features of the Almost Complete Collection during the review portion of this review. After I review the episode, I'll quickly just skim through the special features and just tell you all about them and what they are. And I'll give you my thoughts on them and what I think about them as well. Now, what's my experience with Dick Van Dyke? I'm not a huge fan of him. However, I am a little bit familiar with his work. I have, of course, seen the original Mary Poppins, so I do know him from that. I've seen Mary Poppins before. It's actually been a long time since I've seen the movie, but I do remember his character and, that movie. I also did see the Night of the Museum films, so while I don't remember him being in it, because it's been a while since I've seen the Night of the Museum films, I did see those in theaters, and I remember seeing them, so yeah, I know him from those. Although, what really interested me is this Batman, short film, where he voices Commissioner Gordon. That's actually really fascinating. I actually can't wait to see watch this, Batman New Times short film and see how he sounds as Commissioner Gordon. That's actually really interesting, prospect, or interesting, casting. So I definitely will be interested to see how he sounds as Commissioner Gordon in that, short film. But yeah, outside of Mary Poppins and the two Night of the Museum films, I am not the hugest fan of Dick Van Dyke. But I do want to ask you guys, what do you think of our final guest star of the new Scooby Doo movies? What's your experience with him? Do you like him? Are you a big fan of him? You not like him? You're not that huge on him? And what do you think of his guest appearance on the new Scooby Doo movies? Do you like it? Do you think it was a good fit? Do you hate it? Do you think it wasn't a good fit? And do you think they should have brought him back on Scooby Doo and Guess Who? And do you think it was also a missed opportunity that they didn't bring him back like Cher and Sandy Duncan on Scooby Doo and Guess Who? Tell me all about it in the comment section below and let me know. Now, as far as this episode's reception is concerned, I believe most fans do seem to like this episode. I've heard good things about it. I've heard people, give it praise. So, with that in mind, what kind of finale to Season 2 and the series as a whole is this going to be? Is this going to be a good finale to the new Scooby Doo movies, as both Season 2-wise and the show as a whole? Is it going to be a bad and shitty finale to the series in Season 2? Or is it going to be, what the entirety of Season 2 has been like outside of the Speed Buggy episode? Is it going to be an average ending to Season 2 and the new Scooby Doo movies as a whole? Well, let's find out, shall we? So let's take a look at the episode to see whether I think it is a good or bad episode of the new Scooby Doo movies. The episode begins with the gang on the road. Freddy spots a sign for a carnival, and so the gang decides to drive in with the intent to avoid anything haunted for once and just have some fun. Arriving, the carnival is deserted and the place is empty. There are no rides running, and worst of all the food tents are closed. Approaching the ticket booth, the gang discovers Dick Van Dyke sleeping within. Mr. Van Dyke explains he owns the carnival and is called Dick Van Dyke Barrel of Fun. But Shaggy pokes fun at that and says, well, the barrel is pretty empty to me. Because he has no staff, Dick Van Dyke wears multiple costumes and works as all the carnival attendees as the gang tours the carnival. At one point, he even comes out as the carnival strongman, though the gang eventually figure out it's Mr. Van Dyke himself, running the whole thing by himself, as everyone was scared away. Even though the carnival is haunted, Dick Van Dyke says that his family motto is the show must go on. And being professional ghost hunters, the gang decide to investigate and help Mr. Van Dyke out. After volunteering to help, the gang spot their first ghost. It's a glowing arm and hand that beckons them to follow it. The gang watch the floating arm play a carnival game, specifically the baseball throwing concession stand, and steal a few Cupid dolls away. After the haunted fun, the gang decide to split up and search for clues. Scooby and Shaggy are the first to find a ghost after investigating a hot dog and hamburger stand. After their plan to find food fails, the gang run into a fun house, specifically just Shaggy and Scooby, where Scooby and Shaggy are frightened by a ghost in the House of Mirrors. I do like this scene of Scooby and Shaggy going to the fun House of Mirrors. We do get a couple jokes before that, you know, at the food stand and when they get scared away. But I do like the fun house scene. It's very fun. We get to see Shaggy and Scooby goof around and then get scared by one of the ghosts. It's kind of weird, though, that when Shaggy and Scooby go to enter the funhouse, when Scooby enters first, he, for some reason, you know, yelps in pain and then jumps up and then gets stuck in, you know, whatever you want to call it, like a rafter above, and then falls down. And I don't know what made him jump up like that. I don't know what he was yelping in pain for, why he... Like, did he step on something sharp? Did the ghost do something? Why did Scooby yelp in pain and then, you know, go all the way up to the tarp or, you know, whatever you call it? I just don't understand that scene at all. I don't know what made Scooby jump like that. But, yeah, fun little funhouse mirror scene. Enjoy it. Love the little jokes and shenanigans by Shaggy and Scooby. But even more fun when they get scared by the ghost.
Hey, Scoob! Funny mirrors!
You look funny.
You know you're no Rin Tin Tin either.
Oh, yeah? How's that?
You call that a muscle? That's nothing. Watch this. Now that's a muscle. You know, it's too bad the other guys aren't here to enjoy the fun.
Yeah, too bad.
But at least there's no ghost around, right?
Right. No ghost around here.
Hey, what's the matter?
Ghost.
Where?
In the mirror.
It's your imagination, Scoob. There's nobody in that mirror but us.
There was.
Well, there's nobody there now. Take a look.
Okay.
Seeking escape on a roller coaster, our cowardly pair are attacked by the ghost. Meanwhile, Fred, Daphne, and Velma watch an impromptu magic show as Dick Van Dyke acts as the Great Mystifoe. After the show ends, they all come to Shaggy and Scooby's help as they spot the roller coaster running by itself. I do like the roller coaster scene. It's very fun and entertaining, just like the Funhouse Mirror scene, where Shaggy and Scooby are first having fun and enjoying the ride. Not really Scooby. Scooby, in this episode, it's very much, you know, told to us that Scooby doesn't really like roller coasters. At least that's what, you know, the episode, you know, shows us, is that, you know, Scooby seems like he doesn't like roller coasters and isn't very fond of them. Which, I don't blame Scooby, because I hated roller coasters growing up, too. I absolutely hated them. So I don't blame Scooby for not liking being on roller coasters. But Shaggy seemed to have a lot of fun with it, and he tried to calm Scooby down. But then, of course, another ghost had to show up and, you know, ruin their fun. But yeah, fun little scene. Fun, you know, like the Funhouse Mirror scene. Starts off as harmless little fun, you know, with Shaggy and Scooby just hiding from the ghost and then enjoying the ride, and then running into the ghost again. So
Who goes there? Friend or foe?
That's me, Scooby.
Oh, it's you. Keep low, Scoob. This caterpillar ride makes a good hiding place.
It's moving.
Well, we might as well enjoy the ride. That's what we came to the carnival for, right?
Right. Yikes.
Take it easy, Scoob. It's only a little caterpillar ride.
I'm scared.
Well, if you're so scared, hold my hand. Man, your paw is sure cold and clammy. ghost! Nice to have met you, but I gotta leave now. Help! Let me out of here! Somebody help!
Hey, my caterpillar's moving, and someone's inside it.
Freddy! Velma! Daphne! Get me out of here!
Me too.
Sounds like Shag and Scooby. Hi there. Having fun?
No!
Why not?
There's a ghost in here.
A ghost?
Does he have a ticket?
Just a minute, I'll ask him. He says no.
Hey, no one rides free except children. Is this ghost over 6 years old?
I'll ask him. He says he's over 600 years old.
Oh, that's different. That makes him a senior citizen.
It sure does.
Senior citizens only pay half fare. Does he have a senior citizen ticket?
No.
Tell the ghost he'll have to get off.
You tell him. Yeah!
Well, sorry the ghost spoiled your fun. I'll give you an extra ride free. Which ride would you like?
I'll ride home.
Scooby and Shaggy safely get off the Caterpillar roller coaster, but are then sent off into the air after the ghost sends a balloon stand into the air, as he creates a whole huge-ass balloon and somehow, ties it up into the balloon stand and makes the balloon stand float with Shaggy and Scooby in it. And then the ghost tries to kill Scooby and Shaggy by bursting the balloons with the hot laser focus, mirror. So he holds up a mirror and uses the sunlight to reflect it towards the balloons to pop them. This is probably the most threatening the ghost gets, as he does actually try to kill Scooby and Shaggy here. Like, there's no two ways about it. He tried to kill them. Like, he sent them up there, with the big ass balloon, and then popped all of them just for the hell of it, so he can get rid of them. Fortunately for Shaggy and Scooby, Dick Van Dyke saves their lives by giving them a soft landing in an ice cream cart. We then get a few more chase scenes involving haunted attractions and ghosts. So in the second portion of the episode, specifically this portion that I'm mentioning, Dick Van Dyke goes off with Shaggy and Scooby one way to go look for the ghost, and Fred, Daphne, and Velma go another way. So for the first part of the episode, Fred, Daphne, and Velma were with Dick Van Dyke. But now for this portion, Shaggy and Scooby get to hang out with Dick Van Dyke for a little bit. And at one point, Daphne is even kidnapped after walking into a photo booth, because she wants to take a photo for Dick Van Dyke, I guess. And it doesn't take Freddy and Velma long to find her, as they discover her riding in a bumper car. And it's kind of fun seeing Daphne ride a bumper car and just, kind of fun, having a fun time and being very bright and vibrant. Our final set piece takes place in the Tunnel of Love, which turns out to be a tunnel of terror for Scooby and Shaggy, as there's a lot of creepy, props that are displayed in the Tunnel of Love. Dick Van Dyke says that it's supposed to be help, make couples romantic and help them, get engaged and get married. This is after, of course, Dick Van Dyke, Shaggy, and Scooby, deal, with the ghost at, I forget the ride, what the attraction is called, but it's basically you use the hammer to hit the bell, and then there's also the fortune teller machine, which ends up, opening up a trapdoor into the Tunnel of Love, where they land into a boat into the Tunnel of Love, and that's how they end up there. And then Dick Van Dyke feels around for a trapdoor. He finds one, and Fred, Daphne, and Velma pull him out, and then Shaggy and Scooby follow. Now, the weird thing is that I don't know how Fred, Daphne, and Velma found this tunnel. It's never, specified what happened. That because the last time we saw them, they were in the bumper car area. We didn't see them enter any sort of secret passageway. So how did they end up in that tunnel? Did they find a secret passageway? Did they find, something else? How did they get down to that tunnel? It felt like there was a scene missing that explained how they got into that tunnel, and we never get that explanation at all. It just cuts them into that tunnel, and it's very odd. Regardless, like I said, Dick Van Dyke, Scooby, and Shaggy run into Fred, Daphne, and Velma, and they hear some grunting noises and go to follow them, and they discover the motor room for the carousel ride. Now, inside the ride's mechanical room, they discover the various ghostly costumes, which are sheets covered in luminous paint. And after hearing a man grunting, they find the strong man lifting weights. The strong man explains that he wanted Dick Van Dyke to think his carnival was haunted, so Dick Van Dyke would sell it to him cheap, so he could be more than just a regular strong man, and be a strong man that owned a carnival. Now, what was very weird is that some of his gimmicks were explained, but others weren't. One thing is that there was this huge arm, which was the arm we saw earlier throwing at the baseball concession stand. They said he would have to wear it to do it. But the thing is that it was only an arm. It wasn't a physical body. So, how would he, unless if there was some wire work going on, how could he wear it and the gang not see his body? That's never explained at all. The strong man takes chase, but his plan fails as he's struck by a carousel horse chasing after Scooby and Shaggy in one last chase scene. And I actually like the final chase scene, because like Shaggy and Scooby, I'd be scared shitless too if I saw a man bent a dumbbell in half. I'd be running the fuck out of there, and I don't blame them at all. And for some reason, the strongman tries to take chase, which, I don't know why. Maybe he just doesn't want them to leave and go get, somebody. But he fails, and he gets struck into the ice cream cart, thanks to Shaggy and Scooby inadvertently hitting him on the carousel horses. And yeah, it's a good way to end the episode with him getting caught by Scooby and Shaggy inadvertently.
It's the strong man. He said he left my carnival.
Well, obviously he didn't. He's your ghost. Only his arm is big enough to fit inside this phony ghost arm.
I think you're right. I can't even hold it up. He sure has strong arms. But why should he pretend to be a ghost?
I also have strong ears. I heard you, Van Dyke. It was all a part of my plan to make you think your carnival was haunted.
But why?
So you'd sell it to me cheap. And then, instead of just another strong man, I'd be the owner of the carnival. But you kids started snooping around and ruined it for me. Well, you'll pay for that.
Did you see what he did to that dumbbell?
Well, I'm not gonna stay around here and let him do that to me. I'm no dumbbell. Let's go, Scoob!
They will not get far.
Yikes! Help! We're on a runaway horse on a runaway carousel!
Now to stop the carousel and grab them.
Whoops! Hey! Get out of my tutti frutti!
My Scooby Scoop. What happened?
Well, that puts him on ice. Ice cream, that is.
Good work, Shaggy.
You too, Scooby.
You saved Mr. Van Dyke's carnival.
You all help save it. And as a reward, I'm making you part owners. You're all going to help me run it.
No kidding!
You mean it?
Of course.
Wow, just think, our very own carnival.
And the episode ends with the bad guy caught, and Mr. Van Dyke makes the gang part owners. So they stay behind and run the various attractions. Now, they explain all the gang's roles. They don't explain Velma's role, which is weird. I think they say, Shaggy's in charge of food concession. Daphne's in charge of the Tunnel of Love. Scooby's the barker. I think Fred does the ticketing or something, or runs the rides. But they never explain Velma's role. What's Velma's role? What does she do? What's her role in the carnival? What is she running? I would have liked to have known that, but yeah, we never get an answer for that. And that's how Nicole Jaffe's tenure as Velma ends. So that's the end of the episode, but now let's get into the special features for the almost complete collection of the new Scooby Doo movies. And there's really only 3, so I'll just go over them very quickly. I don't have much to say about them. So first we have the Hanna-Barbera Kennel Club Roast Scooby Doo. According to the back of the box set, it says, It's embarrassing stories of how Scooby-Doo mumbled and clawed his way to animation stardom. Now, this will probably get its own separate video entirely, so I'm not going to go too in-depth on it, but it's not really that impressive in my mind. It's fine. A lot of reused stock footage from different shows, not just Scooby-Doo, but different characters and their shows. And not really much of a roast, I would say. I was actually hoping for some new animation and to see, an actual funny little roast about Scooby-Doo. But it actually really isn't, so don't expect much out of it. The next special feature is Uptown with Scooby-Doo and the Harlem Globetrotters. According to the DVD, this is where two Harlem Globetrotters players, Otis Key and Michael Wilson, show Scooby-Doo some new tricks. So, Otis Key and Michael Wilson, I believe, were, players around, the late 90s to early 2000s, which is probably when this was filmed. And, like the previous one, it's a lot of reused animation and stock footage to time with these two players. However, I do think it's cool that we get to see them show us some cool tricks. So if you're into basketball like me and you want to know some cool Harlem Globetrotters tricks that you can use at home or on the basketball court, then this special feature might be for you because it actually shows some pretty cool, neat little tricks. And I think it's kind of cool. Not the best special feature, but I think with the basketball segments, them showing new tricks, it is cool. But the reused animation and the stock footage is just, kind of hinders it a little bit. There's not really any new animation. I would have liked for them to have tried new animation with it, but it is what it is. And then the final special feature on the DVD box set is Girls Rock. According to the back of the DVD, it says it spotlights on the two female members of the gang, Daphne and Velma. So yeah. This is probably the best special feature of the DVD. It basically gives random individuals to talk about Daphne and Velma specifically. And, about the different personality traits, their quirks, their tropes, shit like that. So if Daphne or Velma is your favorite character of the Scooby-Doo gang, or if you're like me and you just love seeing random people talk about Scooby-Doo, then this special feature is for you, because it's actually a really cool special feature seeing them talk about Daphne and Velma. It's weird when they try to spotlight the two female members of the gang. I noticed they try to do that a couple times. I kind of you'll notice they'll never do that for Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby. They'll never do a male member spotlight, which is odd, but they'll do female member spotlight. I'm not complaining or anything. I think it's cool that they talk in depth about Daphne and Velma. I think that's great that some random people talk in depth about them. But I would like if a DVD at least one day maybe do a spotlight on Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby. Maybe do a male member spotlight and have both. And don't get me wrong, this spotlight has both males and females talk in depth about Daphne and Velma. So it's not just an all girls thing. There's some dudes and males that they get on and interview to talk about Daphne and Velma in depth, as well as certain females. So I would like, if they did the same thing for the male members of the gang, Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby, where they would have a segment where they would interview both males and females alike and have them talk in depth about what they think of Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby as characters and their different personality traits and their quirks and their tropes and shit like that. But yeah, it's a cool special feature. So if you're wondering which one of the DVD you should watch, I recommend Girls Rock. I think that's the best one out of the three. And then Uptown with Scooby-Doo and the Harlem Globetrotters is probably the second best. And then the Hanna-Barbera Kennel Club Roast Scooby-Doo is probably my least favorite of the special features, which is a shame. But yeah, that's all we got for special features. So now let's get into my thoughts on the episode. I'm going to give Season 2, Episode 8 of the new Scooby Doo movies 3 stars out of 5. So yeah, not surprising at all. We have another 3 out of 5 episode. This whole season has just been very average, very safe. So it doesn't surprise me that this season ended on an average note. It does surprise me that the series as a whole ended on an average note, but in terms of the track record of Season 2, it doesn't really surprise me. I do have more negatives than I do positives, but I'll start off with the positives of the episode before I get, and what I liked about it first, before I get into the negatives of the episode and, what brings it down for me. Starting off with the positives, my first one is that I think Fred was a good leader in this episode. He fulfilled his usual role of being a good leader. I think he was mostly the leader of the episode, but Dick Van Dyke did do a little bit of leading as well, especially when he was with Shaggy and Scooby. But when Fred was with, Daphne and Velma, even when he was with Dick Van Dyke, Fred was definitely more of the guy taking charge and more of the leader and the one leading away. But Dick Van Dyke did, at some points, did lead the way. So Fred wasn't the sole leader of the episode, but he was definitely more, had a big portion of the leadership in this episode. And Dick Van Dyke had a little bit of that as well. Daphne was very bright and vibrant in this episode. She exuded some fun energy. I really like seeing her being so, having so much fun, having, a fun time, being bright, being vibrant, just kind of enjoying herself and not really sensing any sort of danger, not really scared or anything. She's just kind of having fun. She's having a good time, and she's radiating some fun energy. She makes me want to go ride the rides with her. She's just very bright and very vibrant in this episode, and I just think she just overall had some fun energy in this episode. Like, she was just like a fun gal in this episode. She just seemed like she was having a good time, and was enjoying every second that she was there, and didn't feel like she was a waste of space. It felt like it felt like she was like any other member of the audience would do if they had a carnival to themselves, which is have fun, with all these different attractions, and didn't really let the ghost spoil her fun. And yeah, she just was very bright and vibrant in this episode. She just radiated positivity. She just was very sweet and wholesome in this episode. And yeah, I mean, you could say that she's like that all the time, but I feel like in this episode, I think there was just like a certain energy about her in this episode that I just liked. Like, she just looked like she was just having a good time and having fun. It was very bright and very positive and very vibrant and lit up, lit up the atmosphere of the episode. Like, she just, made her, just lit up the whole gang, made them, lit up the area, whatever you want to call it. Like, she just radiated, some good positive vibes and good energy, and just seemed to have a fun time and didn't let the ghost ruin it. So I just kind of liked that. I just felt like she just had a certain energy to her in this episode that just made her fun to watch. And then, of course, we have Shaggy and Scooby. So Shaggy and Scooby, like as always, were just their usual funny, cowardly selves. Shaggy and Scooby were very funny in this episode. Like, they had a lot of great jokes. Scooby had so many funny jokes a couple times. Shaggy had some great jokes. Especially when they were on their own, like, during the funhouse section and the food tent when they were making their own food. When they were anytime they were getting away from the ghost, they just had a lot of fun jokes and just had a fun little dynamic in this episode. And of course, we're very cowardly in this episode, like they always were. But yeah, Shaggy and Scooby, they were just their usual funny, cowardly selves, fulfilled their usual roles, and were just fun to, like Daphne, were fun to watch in this episode. And I just enjoyed their sense of humor in this episode. Then we have the guest star of the episode, Dick Van Dyke. How was our final guest star of the new Scooby Doo movies, Dick Van Dyke? I thought Dick Van Dyke was a good guest star in this episode. I actually really liked Dick Van Dyke in this episode. He was great. So first off, like I said before, he was a good leader in this episode. Although Fred was the primary leader, Dick Van Dyke did want to help solve the mystery. He very much was leading away. Leading the way and wanted to help solve the mystery. And it makes sense. He owns this carnival. He doesn't want to sell it. He doesn't want to give it up. And he wants to figure out why his carnival is being haunted. And so he definitely leads the way and wants to help solve the mystery. And so I really think Dick Van Dyke, did a good job in this episode on that front. He also had good chemistry with the entire gang throughout the episode. I didn't feel there was any point where Dick Van Dyke didn't have any sort of chemistry with anybody. Like, he had moments with everybody. Like, the beginning and end portions of the episode, he had chemistry with the entire gang. The first half of the episode, he had, when they were splitting up, he was with Fred, Daphne, Velma, had good chemistry with them. In the second half of the episode, when he split up with Shaggy and Scooby, he had good chemistry with them. So he just overall had good chemistry with everybody and worked well with everybody. I also thought Dick Van Dyke had a great sense of humor in this episode. He was quite funny in this episode. He was a joy to watch. Honestly, I had a great time watching him because he wanted to help solve the mystery. He was definitely brave and, a bit of a leader. But what made him so fun is that, he had a good sense of humor about him that wasn't forced. He just was naturally funny. He's just a naturally funny guy, but he also knew when to be serious. Like, he didn't treat things as a joke. He just was, naturally funny. So he had a great sense of humor, and he worked well with each member of the gang, but he wasn't, just off to the sidelines and letting the gang solve the mystery. He was actively investigating with them and wanted to figure out why his carnival was haunted, what was going, we wanted to help solve the mystery, and he led the way for certain portions of the episode. Specifically when he was with Shaggy and Scooby, I feel like he was a bit of, more of a, leader. But there was some points when he was with Fred, Daphne, Velma that he did lead a little bit. But yeah, overall, I think Dick Van Dyke was a fantastic guest star. He did everything I want a guest star to do. He wanted to help solve the mystery, which is what I like to see out of a guest star when they're actively involved in the mystery and want to help solve it, and even be a little bit of a leader. He had good chemistry with each member of the gang. He wasn't offbeat with anybody. He worked well with every member of the gang. And he just had an overall good sense of humor. He was naturally funny. It didn't feel forced. Like, he just was a naturally funny dude. And he was a fun guest star to watch. He was a joy to watch. Definitely one of the highlights of the episode. And definitely, one of the bright spots of this episode. He was really good. I thought the motive of the villain was actually really good as well. So, basically, the strongman, the unnamed carnival strongman, which he never gets a name. We never find out who he is. But yeah, Dick Van Dyke's unnamed carnival strongman wanted to scare Dick Van Dyke into selling his carnival for cheap. So that's a pretty good motive. It's like a good mix of money and land motive. He did it because he wanted to stand out from the pack and not just be an ordinary strongman, but to be a strongman that owned a carnival. I actually like this idea. Like, he doesn't want to just be a guy with muscles. He doesn't want to be a lackey. He doesn't want to be some employee. He wants to run his own business. He wants to be the owner of the carnival and make a profit off of it and not just be one of the attractions. And I think that's great. I think that's an interesting motive. It is a combination of a money and land motive, pretty much, because he's trying to get land for cheap. And he's going to make profit off of it if he were to get the carnival, and the carnival is a booming success. So, yeah, it's a combination of a money and land motive, but what makes it work is its uniqueness and freshness. Like, it's a good, has a nice bit of variety to it. It at least has a good touch to it. It doesn't feel repetitive. It feels like the strongman gives it its own flavor, because it's a guy who you normally see as an attraction or as an employee, and not someone that, you see at the top of the food chain and the guy that's running the business. He doesn't want to just be seen as some employee or some, lackey or one of the attractions. He wants to be the guy running the business, making the profit. He wants to have all of that. And so to me, that's a really interesting idea, that a strong man wants to be more than what he's viewed as. And he wants to be more than that. So I think his motive was great. I think it was unique. I think it was fresh. And while it was a combination of a money and land motive, it was a good, unique, and fresh money and land motive. I thought the mystery of the episode was good as well. So basically the mystery was that you wanted to know why Dick Van Dyke's carnival was haunted. Why were these ghosts haunting Dick Van Dyke's carnival? And what was their end goal? Like, what were they trying to achieve out of haunting this place? You know, why are these ghosts haunting this place and trying to scare people out of it? What do they want out of it? And so I think it's a good, mystery. We get good, satisfying answers at the end, because the motive is good. And so we get good answers to that question. And the mystery overall is quite engaging because we want to know why this specific location, a place that's normally fun and bright and vibrant, a place you don't normally suspect to be haunted unless if it's abandoned, and creepy as well. Why is, a normal carnival like this being haunted? Why are these ghosts terrifying haunting Dick Van Dyke's carnival? What's so special about it from all the other carnivals and the other lands? And what's their end goal? So, yeah, the mystery was good. It was engaging, and I wanted to know I wanted to know the answers to these questions, and I did get good, satisfying answers to them. And my final positive is that I thought the setting of the episode was good. So I know people are probably going to say that this setting is quite similar in vein to Funland, from Foul Play and Funland and Scooby Doo, Where Are You? That this is very much exudes a similar vibe to that it doesn't feel like anything new. To that I say, I don't really think it's that repetitive. Does it have some set pieces that are quite similar to Funland? Yes. But it also does enough, I feel like, to where it's, it has enough different attractions to explore, and the longer runtime gives more set pieces to explore to make it different and unique enough. So I don't think the setting is as repetitive as people would think it would be. It's a similar vibe and in a similar vein to Funland. I'm not denying that, but I think it does enough different and enough uniqueness and has enough variety to it to where it's not a repetitive setting, and it's a different kind of fun setting. It's not in a theme park, an amusement park on this, on the edge of the sea, on a beach side. It's a carnival. A carnival, while similar in some respects to a theme park or an amusement park, still is quite different and has a lot of different things to it. And so while there is similar-ish set pieces that the gang explore in the setting, there's also different stuff as well. People could say the Funhouse thing is quite similar with the mirrors. People could say the roller coaster is quite similar. But, you have, the different tents that they go in. The bumper cars could also be viewed as similar as well. But I feel like the gang go to enough different areas, and the carnival is so big and expansive that I feel like it doesn't feel too repetitive to it. And I get that there are similarities to Funland, but I feel like the setting as a whole has enough different attractions to it to make it feel not boring. There definitely are similar set pieces to Funland and similar vibes to it, and it's definitely in a similar vein to it, but I don't think it's an exact copy of it. They might have reused a few assets that they used in Funland in this episode, but I don't think they overall copied the setting and made it feel too repetitive. I felt like it was different enough and unique enough to where it was a different kind of fun, attraction-filled setting. So I thought the setting was good because, like I said, it was, we got to explore all these cool different attractions, and it got to be, and it was a huge expansive area, and it gave the setting variety because we weren't simply in one place. It was set in one place, but the one place had so many areas to explore. There were so many tents, so many rides, so many attractions, so many stands that you could go to, that it made it stand out and made it, had some variety to it and wasn't very repetitive, and we weren't seeing the same thing. It had some uniqueness and freshness to it. So yeah, similar in vein to Funland, similar kind of ideas, similar kind of concepts, similar kind of set pieces. I get that. I'm not denying that those exist, and I get that, they have similar kind of vibes. But I definitely think there's enough here to where it's different to Funland than people may think. And with the longer runtime, that gives them more time to expand on more of the rides than Funland can do in like 20 minutes. But that's all I got for positives, so I think it's about time to get on to the negatives of the episode and what brings this episode down for me. So my first negative is that I thought Velma was weak in this episode. You know, for the last episode to have Nicole Jaffe voice Velma, this was definitely not the best way to go out on. I'm kind of glad that she came back in Legend of the Vampire Monster in Mexico, because this was not the best performance to end on. I think this was not a good episode for Velma. She wasn't really much of a leader in this episode. She didn't piece together the clues to help solve the mystery. She didn't have anything else going for her, like humor or cowardice or anything like that. I just didn't really get anything from Velma in this episode, and that's kind of a shame, especially since this is Nicole Jaffe's last episode voicing Velma. I would have liked something good for her to end out on, so I think it's a shame that she didn't end on a high note. But thankfully, this isn't her last time voicing Velma. It's just her last time voicing Velma in a television series. But she will come back in Legend of the Vampire Monster in Mexico. So hopefully, in the movie space for Scooby Doo, Nicole Jaffe will end on a better note than she did in the TV space. Then we have the villain of the episode, who I thought was very weak and very boring and very bland. So the villain of the episode doesn't actually really get any sort of name. They just kind of call him a ghost. The Scooby Doo Wikipedia the Scoobypedia website, where all things, good Scooby information is, held. It lists the ghost as the ghostly strongman, and that makes sense because there are points where the ghost is in full form and it's just the strongman in white. So that's what I'm going to refer to him as, is the ghostly strongman, and as well as these little gimmicks he uses. But the main villain is really the ghostly strongman. The ghostly strongman is such an unimpressive, boring, bland, and weak villain. They did not even try to make this villain stand out at all. They gave no attention or thought to him at all. He wasn't scary. He wasn't fun or entertaining to watch. He made very little impression, if at all. I don't think there was any sort of impression he made on me at all. He was such an afterthought, such a secondary thing. This episode was more entertaining when it came to the gang and Dick Van Dyke interacting and just exploring the carnival. It felt like the villain was just a last-minute thing and a gimmick to have the gang explore the carnival for a reason. And they did not make the villain stand out at all. They did not give him any sort of, scare factor or any sort of fun or entertaining factor to him. This was such a boring and bland villain. A very weak villain, not the best way to end the new Scooby Doo movies in the villain department. Such an awful villain to end on. Just a very weak villain. He just made no impression at all. And so, yeah, he stinks. Like, he doesn't really do anything. And, yeah, that's all I can really say about him. He's just boring. Then we have the villain outside of costume, which is the unnamed carnival strongman. So we never see this unnamed carnival strongman outside of costume before this point. We don't see him until the end of the episode, which means we don't get to know him as a person before that point. We just see him when he's revealed as the villain, and that's it. We don't know him beforehand, what kind of person he's like. We don't get to see him play sort of a facade or, tell any sort of story or legend. We get nothing from him. We don't see him before that point. It's literally just Dick Van Dyke and the gang that are shown for most of the episode. And then the strongman appears at the last minute, to be revealed as the villain. And he made no impression because we didn't see him. We didn't get to know him as a person at all. He did nothing to stand out because he did absolutely nothing before that point. We had no idea of his existence before that point until Dick Van Dyke and the rest of the gang caught him, and Dick Van Dyke explained that the strongman was one of his workers who left a couple weeks before. To piggyback off that point, I'm going to now talk about the suspects of the episode. There were absolutely no suspects in the episode whatsoever, and I feel like there was an opportunity here to have a good amount of suspects in this episode. I don't know why they did not have at least 2 or 3 Carnival employees left with Dick Van Dyke that maybe could have left around that same time, or could have been the last few remaining employees. I feel like it was such a missed opportunity to not have any sort of employees with Dick Van Dyke. It was so ridiculous and dumb. So yeah, we have no suspects throughout the episode. It's literally just Dick Van Dyke and the gang by themselves, you know, exploring and investigating this weird and strange ghostly phenomenon, until it's revealed that it's the strongman, and we never see him before that point. We never see anybody else up to that point. Nobody. So we have nobody to suspect before that point, so there's no sort of mystery of, oh, who could it be? Because we don't see anybody before that point that we could suspect, so that stinks. There also was no clues in the episode either. So unlike the last episode where we had clues, this episode there's absolutely no clues whatsoever. We never get any sort of clues to point towards a suspect or a motive or anything at all. It's literally just the gang wandering around the carnival for a little while until they happen upon the guy who was causing these strange ghostly happenings. That's literally what happens. They literally just explore the carnival just to see, you know, just to figure out what this weird phenomenon is, and they figure out what it is. So yeah, the clues sting. We get no clues to help point towards a suspect or a motive. And my final negative is that I thought the atmosphere of the episode was very non-existent. You know, wasn't there at all. I felt no tension or suspense or creepiness or eeriness throughout this episode. I didn't fear for the gang's safety. I wasn't on the edge of my seat wondering what was going to happen next. There was nothing creepy or, you know, eerie about anything in the setting. The villain, you know, made no impression, so he did nothing creepy or eerie, besides maybe that one scene where he tried to kill Shaggy and Scooby with the popping the balloons. But that's, like, outside of that, he did absolutely nothing. So, due to the villains and pretty much the nature of the fun setting, you know, the carnival, and not really making the carnival a really a creepy Scooby-esque setting, which is fine because the carnival is still a good setting in my eyes. Like, I don't hate it or anything, but it does kind of kill the atmosphere a little bit. And also with the villain making no impression and not really doing anything himself, that makes the atmosphere very non-existent, and it just ends up, you know, being very tensionless, suspensefulness, you know, very tensionless, has no suspense, no creepiness, no atmosphere, nothing. I'm not feeling any sort of atmosphere in this episode at all, so yeah. Overall, guys, I would still recommend this episode to fans and newcomers to the show. Despite its many flaws, it's actually a fun episode. It's a fun but flawed episode. If you're in the right mood, I think you can enjoy it. Especially if you're a fan of Dick Van Dyke and you love the idea of Dick Van Dyke teaming up with the Scooby Gang. You'll love this episode. And honestly, I feel it's similar in veins to the Don Adams episode. While a lot of aspects don't work, like the villain and the atmosphere and, the clues, the suspects, all that stuff, I still think it can be enjoyed and have fun with due to Dick Van Dyke's, fun nature, him being a great guest star, and the gang bouncing off of him well, and the gang being mostly good except for Velma. So I think if you're in the right mood, you can have a good enough time with it and enjoy it if you're in the mood for some kind of fun adventure type of Scooby episode. I think this is maybe the type of episode you can go for, like the Don Adams one. But it's very flawed and has a lot of issues with it. But definitely not the worst episode to end the second season of the new Scooby Doo movies on, as well as the series as a whole. I think it fits season 2 well enough, and while not the best way to end the show on, it's certainly not the worst. Like, it could have been way worse, and there was a lot of good to it, but it has a lot of flaws to it. And yeah, you just kind of have to be in the right mood to probably enjoy this episode and have a good enough time with it. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please give it a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts on the episode. Do you like this episode? Do you see more good in it than I do? Like, do you think I'm being a little too harsh on it? Like, is there more positives to it that you see? Do you hate this episode? I'd be interested in that as well. Are you not a big fan of this episode? Is this episode worse than I'm giving it credit for? Are there more issues with it? Or are you somewhere in the middle like me, where you think it's average? It's a fun and flawed average episode, but it's not spectacular or anything. It's not good or bad. It's just okay. I'm curious for your thoughts, so let me know. And subscribe for more Scooby Doo content like this, or if you're just interested in any of my other content, I'll have more Scooby Doo reviews on the way, since this is a Scooby focused channel, as well as more Scooby Doo Let's Play videos, more Scooby content on the way. Like, you know, so if you're a big Scooby Doo fan, you love talking about all things Scooby Doo, come join the channel, because we'll be talking about all things Scooby Doo, not just the popular stuff. We'll be talking about every piece of Scooby Doo media, every show, every movie, every video game, every book, anything I can get my hands on, I want to talk about and give Scooby the love and attention he deserves on the platform. Well, that's it, folks. That is every episode of the new Scooby Doo movies reviewed. Like I said, it's been a little over a year, but this has been a fun, enjoyable experience to revisit the new Scooby Doo movies and talk about each individual episode. It's sad to see it over, but as you can tell, I love the show. Like, I've made it no secret that the new Scooby Doo movies is one of my favorite shows of the franchise. And while this is the end of the episode reviews, this is not the end of the new Scooby Doo movies as a whole. Like Scooby Doo, Where Are You? I plan to in the future do some rankings, you know, for the new Scooby Doo movies. Maybe some topic videos about certain aspects of different episodes, you know, stuff that, you know, is maybe worthy of discussion. So, the new Scooby Doo movies will not leave the channel anytime soon. I'm sure I will revisit it one day, and I also have a big video, now that the new Scooby Doo movies has ended, I have a big video planned that I will probably start working on after this review, which is basically a in defense of video for the new Scooby Doo movies. I'm one of the people that champions the new Scooby Doo movies, loves the series, but there's a lot of people who don't like it and consider it black sheep in the franchise. There's not really a defense video for it. I think the new Scooby Doo movies is an underrated television show, and I want to make a video showcasing that and talking about why I think it's underrated, and talk about how I don't agree with some of the criticisms, and some of the criticisms, while some of them have truth to them, some of them might be overblown, or, you know, are just incorrect. So if you guys have any criticisms that you've heard of the new Scooby Doo movies that you want me to address in that video, please do let me know in the comments below, because I'll add them to my list. And yeah, I will have a big video defending the new Scooby Doo movies in the future, talking about why I think it's underrated. So keep an eye out on that, because that'll be a fun project to work on and talk about the show as a whole and why I think it's such a good show, why it's an underrated show and deserves more love and attention than it gets and deserves, because it's hated by a lot of people for kind of, you know, not so great reasons. So I want to give the new Scooby Doo movies the you know, the defense it deserves, the attention it deserves, and just kind of defend it and give people a different perspective on the show, since I know a lot of people tend to dislike it and consider it black sheep and not a good show, whereas I consider it a fantastic show and love the show. And while not every episode lands and hits, that's every TV show. Not every episode is going to be a banger. It is what it is. But yeah, the new Scooby Doo movies, it'll have videos, I'm sure, in the future, like Scooby Doo, Where Are You? You know, with rankings, with topic videos, and of course, with the in defensive video of the new Scooby Doo movies. You know, all that will be done in the future. But yeah, keep an eye out on that new Scooby Doo movies in defensive video, or the new Scooby Doo movies is underrated video, because I will definitely be start working on that, and, you know, be making that after this review goes up and start working on it. But yeah, that's the end of the new Scooby Doo movies. That's the end of the second television show in the franchise. And so now, in my next video, we will begin my reviews of the next show in line, which is the third TV show in the Scooby Doo franchise, the Scooby Doo Show. Also another one of my favorite shows, and we will begin with a review of Season 1, Episode 1 of the Scooby Doo Show, High Rise Hair Raiser. And there's no guest star in that episode. We will be going back to just the gang by themselves once again. So yeah, no more guest stars. Back to just the Scooby Gang on their own, which is fine with me. You know, it was a fun little gimmick while it lasted. But now I'm glad that we get to go back with just the Scooby Gang on their own and just having fun with adventures. And I will be watching Season 1 of the new Scooby Doo movies and reviewing it on the Scooby Doo Dynamite Hour Complete Series DVD. This is the only way you can get the Scooby Doo Show Season 1 on DVD. Season 2, I don't have on, there's no physical media for, so that's going to be tough to review. And Season 3 is on the Scooby Doo Warrior Complete Series box set. Like I said, if you go back to my old Scooby Doo Warrior reviews, I talked about how they try to market the third season of the Scooby Doo Show as the third season of Scooby Doo Warrior when it isn't. But yeah, that's where I will be watching Season 1 of the Scooby Doo Show. And yeah, we'll begin tackling the Scooby Doo Show, which is not only many people's favorite shows, it's also one of my favorite shows. So I'm so excited to tackle the Scooby Doo Show. It is one of my favorites. It is a classic. I'm very excited to, talk about it. And honestly, I'm very excited to see, the Scooby Gang just back by themselves again and seeing them on adventures by themselves again. Not that I didn't enjoy the guest stars and that I didn't enjoy the gimmick, but now it's time for a new show and to see the Scooby Gang back by themselves again, and it'll be a fun time. So if you want to know my thoughts on High Rise Hair Razor, the first episode of Season 1 of the Scooby Doo Show, then come check it out in the next video. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, peace out.
Scooby Doo, looking for you. Scooby Doo, where are you? All the stars are here, waiting for you. Couldn't have a show without you.